Hello everyone. Welcome back after a very long break. I'm Simran Hadi and I'm really happy today to come back with a nice guest, Nihal Daraji. I'm really happy, Nihal, to have you here. Just let me give you a quick introduction about Nihal. Nihal, currently she is a CO2 storage lead in the CCS Institute, and she is a researcher at Imperial College, and she got PhD also from Imperial College, and she had a master's degree from Imperial College, and she had her bachelor degree from Alexandria University. So, and also one of the great things, like she won the IBTC Young Professional Award last year. So a lot of these to be said, but Nihal, I'll just give you the mic if I forget anything, so you can tell us more about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. That's actually perfect. So I mainly specialize in CO2 storage right now. I work in multiple parts of the value chain, but mainly focused on geological storage. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, so let's jump then into our conversation that I'm really excited to have it with you. So CCS, there is another solution, for energy like renewable CCS, geothermal. If we can locate that CCS and why it's important, how you would say about this?
Okay, that's an interesting question, and we always get it. We always hear the comment is that CCS is there to prolong oil and gas and not an actual solution. And I couldn't disagree more, actually. So if you look at all the scenarios that the IPCC put forward for decarbonization and reaching net zero by 2030, 2050, or 2060 or whatever, um, you would see that CCS is an integral part of all these solutions. So one thing, we cannot get there fast enough unless we deploy CCS. CCS is also a well-known technology. We know how to do CCS. We know the subsurface, CO2 storage, or CO2 EOR has been there for, I don't know, since the 70s of the last century. So it's a proven technology, and it's a faster way to get to net zero. I'm not opposed renewables at all. Of course, I'm in favor of renewable energy, but then renewable energy's problem is that it's intermittent, with wind energy, with solar energy, with all of these, you know, different routes of the renewable energy. So we cannot live without energy. So we need a reliable source of energy. So I would say renewables will add into the mix, but then there's a whole another world of having to have, like, to supply energy to all of these people around the globe, and with the increasing population. So another topic would be energy storage, actually, once you get it from basically hydrogen or renewables, or all of that. So yeah, that's my take.
Okay, that's really great. So, hello everyone. Welcome back after a very long break. I'm Simran Hadi, and I'm really happy today to come back with a nice guest, Nihal Daraji. I'm really happy, Nihal, to have you here. Just let me give you a quick introduction about Nihal. Nihal, currently she is a CO2 storage lead in the CCS Institute, and she is a researcher at Imperial College, and she got PhD also from Imperial College, and she had a master's degree from Imperial College, and she had her bachelor degree from Alexandria University. So, and also one of the great things, like she won the IBTC Young Professional Award last year. So a lot of these to be said, but Nihal, I'll just give you the mic if I forget anything, so you can tell us more about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. That's actually perfect. So I mainly specialize in CO2 storage right now. I work in multiple parts of the value chain, but mainly focused on geological storage. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, so let's jump then into our conversation that I'm really excited to have it with you. So CCS, there is another solution, for energy like renewable CCS, geothermal. If we can locate that CCS and why it's important, how you would say about this?
Okay, that's an interesting question, and we always get it. Like we always hear the comment is that CCS is there to prolong oil and gas and not an actual solution. And I couldn't disagree more actually. So if you look at all the scenarios that the IPCC put forward for decarbonization and reaching net zero by 2030, 2050, or 2060 or whatever, um, you would see that CCS is an integral part of all these solutions. So one thing, we cannot get there fast enough unless we deploy CCS. CCS is also a well-known technology. We know how to do CCS. We know the subsurface, CO2 storage, or CO2 EOR has been there for, I don't know, since the 70s of the last century. So it's a proven technology, and it's a faster way to get to net zero. I'm not opposed renewables at all. Of course, I'm in favor of renewable energy, but then renewable energy's problem is that it's intermittent, with wind energy, with solar energy, with all of these, you know, different routes of the renewable energy. So we cannot live without energy. So we need a reliable source of energy. So I would say renewables will add into the mix, but then there's a whole another world of having to have, like, to supply energy to all of these people around the globe, and with the increasing population. So another topic would be energy storage actually once you get it from basically hydrogen or renewables or all of that. So yeah, that's my take.
Okay, that's really great. So we've already mentioned that there is a problem with the renewables and other solution, let me say. But again, we as a technical, we know like that there is the challenges, and when it comes to CO2 storage, specifically like if you want to store it under the earth, how it's safer would be. What are the technical questions that we are willing to tackle? So, as a reservoir engineer, for a point of view, we just would love to hear from you. What is the current situation for the to make this as good as possible, or as safe as possible? What's the questions that need to be answered? Let's say to make to deploy more CCS or to have more successful projects.
Okay, so that's a good question. It's we have a lot of questions. So the very first thing is site characterization, but we know how to do that. We basically know how to do most of things in the CCS value chain, or like CCS geology part at least, right? But for example, the things that mostly people are working on right now is MMV or MRV technologies, which is like the monitoring and verification of the CO2. So one of the things, or like one of the main challenges, is the mass balance. How much CO2 did you inject, and how much of it is actually staying underground? There are like two terms that are like being played with right now. So leakage means that it went out of the storage formation all the way to the atmosphere, so that it leaked, but then it might have just migrated from one formation to the other, but it's still contained in the subsurface. So that's just migration and not leakage. So we need to be careful about choosing these words. So for example, if you remember, maybe was it last October or September, they said that the CO2 leaked from the Decatur site in the US in Illinois. and it just sort of, I think it leaked through a legacy well. I'm not quite sure, but then there was quite a bit of migration from one formation to the other. So again, emphasizing my point, migration is very different than leakage. So MMV, one thing that we also need to look at, because usually this MRV or MMV is mainly done by 4D seismic. And if the saturation, it's usually also done by this amplitude difference. So before you inject and after you inject, or like at the start of the injection, after like 5 years, and so on and so forth, just to see where the CO2 has gone, or like the saturation of CO2, what happened to it. So when the saturation of CO2 is very low, you cannot detect it with seismic. So you would just assume that it moved, but it might be there. It's just with the low saturation. So we need to do something about this. We need to be able to understand if it, for example, dissolved in the formation brine. So that's dissolution, or is it moving somewhere else? So more robust MMV would be good for two things for us in terms of technical robustness. And the second thing for public, because they always, they're always worried about triggered seismicity, and then, but it leaks back again to the atmosphere, so you basically done nothing. So yeah, that's one thing that I would say the major thing that would affect this. The other thing is that the heterogeneity of the reservoir. So in the good old oil and gas days, you don't like the heterogeneity. We don't like it because obviously it will basically hold more oil. You won't be able to produce all the oil you have, and hence you have the residual oil saturation, residual gas saturation. But then the heterogeneity can actually be your friend when it comes to CO2 storage, because this heterogeneity will hold more CO2 within the pore space. So that would be in different mechanisms like capillary heterogeneity trapping, where the CO2 builds up behind the capillary barrier and won't move, or because of the pore structure heterogeneity and the geometry of the rock, it could be basically there's so much of snap-off mechanism, which means that when you have your wetting phase, which is brine, for example, go through the imbibition process, it would disconnect the entire CO2 plume, or like a big chunk of it. So it will be held in the pore space by the snap-off mechanism. So that's, for us, it's good in CO2 storage, but maybe it's not good in the oil field, or like if you're trying to produce oil, and maybe it's also not good in hydrogen storage, because you need to retrieve all your hydrogen. So these are just like a glaze over two of the things we're researching or thinking about. There's a whole world of things, or like questions that need to be answered. But we will always have this uncertainty as subsurface professionals, because we try to assume things and model things and not actually see things. We see the evidence and we just sort of work out what happened between the injection well and the monitoring well.
Okay, that's really interesting. I love to hear about like this heterogeneity and different concepts when it comes to CCS. I just, if we just would love to move uh, to like to our to like your personal story, and as you've started to work as a petroleum engineer, how why you start thinking about CCS? Um, what are the motivations? And let me say, how did you build like skills and reorient yourself to the right now as the auto storage lead in the CSS Institute?
Yeah, so as you said, I started with learning the basics of petroleum engineering, which is also the same as the basics of CCS. You need to understand the subsurface, and these are mainly skills petroleum engineers, geoscientists, and geologists. Uh, I would say it's more geoscience than anything else. You'll need a big aspect of geoscience. You need to understand a lot of geoscience. So that's one thing. The other thing, once you have like lay down this scale set, you can really shape it any way you want, right? Because it's applicable. There will definitely be some differences. So, for example, you can, rather than thinking then the relative permeability between oil and brine, you would think about CO2 and brine and the mobility ratios and how the density of CO2 when the phase change will be different and all of that. So you need to think in a slightly different way, but the same principles apply. So for anyone who's looking into moving into the CCS space, I would say like strengthen your core expertise in geoscience, geology, and petroleum engineering, and then sort of shape it a little bit to comply with CO2 and think of CO2 as the fluid moving through your pore space and not oil or gas. That's one thing. The other thing is that I was lucky to do my master's in Imperial College. So my master's is actually a master's in petroleum engineering. So one of the professors that was there, or like still there in at Imperial College, is Professor Sam Carver. He's my current supervisor and was also my master's supervisor. He is one of the big names in CO2 storage. He did his postdoc at Stanford University working on CO2 storage, and then came to Imperial and built like this um, big research group focusing on heterogeneities in the reservoir and really venturing into a lot of things, especially like integrated assessment models, how they look at CCS, how do we reach the targets, and all of that. So I was fascinated by his research, and I learned a lot from him. So I would like to give him credit. I basically learned a lot of the things I know in CCS from him. And Imperial is also like a very good place if you decide to work in the policy space when it comes to CCS. So we have a lot of expertise in house. Also, the capture. I met a couple of people from the Global CCS Institute through Imperial College, a couple of events at Imperial College. I applied for an internship. Thankfully, they liked me and they decided to keep me. So I worked with them on multiple things. So I started with the value chain, just CCS 101. What is CCS? What do we do? What's happening here? And then I ventured into tracking all the CCS projects globally, who's doing what, whether they're doing right, whether they're not doing right, and all of that. So it gave me like a sort of perspective how CCS is different from one region to the other and from one country to the other. And then as of now, I moved into the knowledge and analysis team, focusing mainly on my main area of expertise, which is CO2 storage. And the good thing about the Institute is that you don't just do technical work. You'll have to think strategically. So we call it like leadership, or like thought leadership publications or briefs. So you think, for example, about the cost of storage, which is a brief that is coming out soon, I would say in like the next couple of months or so. You need to think about cost of storage, but you also need to think strategically. So how would this affect developing countries and developed countries? How we can sort of cover the gap here and there, offshore versus onshore. So it's not just pure technical. You'll have to sort of understand what's happening within the technical domain and then everything around it. So it helped give me like a sort of a broader perspective about CCS. And I would say this is also important if someone is starting their career in CCS and wants to grow, because at the end of the day there's also a limit. If you are just technical, you'll always stay just technical. But if you want to be on a managerial level or an executive level, you'll have to understand the policies around it and the strategies and all of that. So yeah, I would say, of course, depending on what path you would choose is where you need to build your expertise to sort of take that path.
Okay, that's really incredible. So even with the CCS, you will have like a different branches of careers and possibilities that you can go through it. Just you mentioned something that very nice, and I was like, I wanted to ask in the next question is like, you've mentioned that CCS is different from from place to another. There is some consideration. I know, like as someone who worked in the CCS institute, you maybe know some information or something like shocking people don't know about it. What kind of things that you want to share with all, like let me say, like truth or figures that are important. What can you share with us?
Okay, so one thing so I have an opinion, but it might not be the opinion that people want to hear, or it might be different from other people's opinion, which I fully accept. So you have two things basically. You have dedicated CO2 storage and you have CO2 EUR CO2 storage. So with dedicated CO2 storage, you take the CO2, you put it underground, you call it a day, right? There's nothing out of that. But then there is another thing, which is you use CO2 as a form of enhanced oil recovery. So basically, you produce more oil, but some of the CO2 you're injecting into the reservoir would actually stay there. So it's sort of, a business model where you produce more oil, but you also offset this footprint. It's not in all cases you offset it, but the main goal would be offset it and sort of inject or like leave some CO2 in the reservoir. There's also a concept that is called EOR plus. So whatever 1 barrel of oil will produce in terms of CO2, you would inject more CO2 or like store more CO2 than this barrel of oil will produce. So that's basically you are in the negative zone and not sort of net zero. Um, so these are two completely different business models. We would imagine that the dedicated CO2 storage would be in Europe. So if you produce 1 drop of oil, that's a big problem in Europe. That they don't really do CO2 EUR. They don't like it. But in other regions in the world, so for example, in the Middle East, there are of course dedicated CO2 storage sites, but for example, in ADNOC, they have the model of CO2 EUR where they produce more oil but also store more CO2. And you have also this business model in Southeast Asia. So a lot of people would say that CO2 EUR, it's not CO2. It's not CO2 injection. It's not. It's just. I'm sorry. I've heard this. Um, I've heard this so many times. Like this is like putting a lipstick on a pig, basically,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So yeah, but then still some CO2 will be, in the subsurface. So which opinion do I agree more with? I think more about the big picture or like the end goal. The end goal is to store more CO2 and to remove more CO2 from the atmosphere. So the thing is, not everyone can afford doing a dedicated CO2 storage site or like having a dedicated CO2 storage site. So these are businesses. At the end of the day, we need to break even or make a profit, right? So I do acknowledge both, and I see that these are both two different business models that needs to be in some parts of the world until we figure out a way to basically maybe do just dedicated CO2 storage. But as of now, these are two successful business models that we need to acknowledge. That's my take on it, and this is my personal opinion and not associated with either Imperial or Global CCS Institute. I'm not representing either now. I'm just saying my opinion. So again, some would lean towards yes, both are fine. For me, both are fine for now until we find another solution. Some would say no, it's either just dedicated CO2 storage or none at all. And some would just say no, we need to make some profit, so it's CO2 EUR all the way and nothing else. So this will remain controversial because it's not just companies, it's also countries, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, they will hash it out at the end of the day. But yeah, these are my 2 cents, I guess.
Okay, and that's really incredible. Exactly that. Yeah, I think it's maybe you're right until we find another solution. So it's better to put some CO2 on the subsurface rather than not do it at all. But
Yeah.
yeah, again, we'll leave it there.
Mm.
Okay, so moving to our next question, and it's like a woman, it's a woman-oriented question. You can say that. How do you find there? What there is any special consideration for girls, to get into that field as like a petroleum engineering, or there is any further, let me say, implications or um, something would come down to the road. What you would say for a woman getting into CCS field?
Well, I really don't think there's any hurdles. I mean, I haven't faced any right now, I would say. There are a lot of like very remarkable women in the space. So one of them is Professor Sally Benson from Stanford. Um, there are like also a lot of people from UT at Austin. There are women there. They have great research groups. They're doing amazing in the CO2 storage space. In the industry, there is Sarah Crouch, who was the global vice president for CCS at Shell. She's not retired, but then she still works in the space. So I guess what I'm trying to say is just take a chance, build yourself in terms of your technical expertise and what you want to do. Ask questions, be proactive. Uh, Go ask people; they will help you. Some of them won't. I acknowledge that, but mostly people will help you if you ask. One person told me something a long time ago. They said to me that if they don't give you a seat on the table, just bring your own chair. And I would say the same thing, bring your own chair. But I would say a lot of people would help. If you're really dedicated and you want to learn, people would help you to get there. So yeah, just make opportunities for yourself and utilize all the network and knowledge that is floating around you to build yourself and your expertise in this space, and it should be fine. I know it's a long way, but you'll get there eventually. It's always seems impossible until it's done. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Myself, I find that advice is interesting. Yeah. So, anything you would love to share with the youth, or at the end of our episode, like any piece of advice or any opportunities you would recommend? Yeah, the floor is yours to say whatever you want to the younger professionals.
Yes, sure. So I would say just keep working on yourself and don't allow anyone to tell you that this is not going to happen for you. You are the only one who can decide what will happen and won't happen for you. So don't get discouraged by people saying, no, you can't do this. That's just rubbish. I've had this at the beginning of my career, people saying like, no, you won't be able to do this. And guess what? I was able to do everything they said that I wouldn't be able to do it. So that's one thing. Just believe in yourself. You are yourself best advocate. So that's one thing. The other thing is if you're getting into the CCS space, there are a lot of schools nowadays, like summer schools that you can join. So there's one that is held by Delft University in the Netherlands. There is also the infamous IAGHG one. So you can like, if you're working in the space as a student, you can apply for these schools, summer schools. You will meet with a lot of professionals, and you can learn more. And it will sort of fast track you a little bit into understanding more about the value chain, and will push you more towards your goal in the CCS space, if that's the space you've selected for your career. So yeah, these are the two things I would like to share.
Yes, that's really interesting, and exactly that's what I was looking for to be shared with our audience and the young professionals. So definitely, I would love to talk more, but we'll leave it up here, and hopefully we will meet again in another episode. And yeah, I'm really happy. I'm more than happy to have you. So
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I will end the recording, but I will be here.